Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Easy Chat English podcast. I'm Amelia, and I'm here with my co-host, Ethan. Today we're talking about something that almost everyone has experienced at some point, a crush.
That's right. Crushes can be fun, confusing, exciting, and sometimes even a little embarrassing. Whether it's puppy love, infatuation, or just a celebrity crush, we've all been there.
Absolutely. In today's episode, we'll share some personal stories about our own crushes, and maybe even talk about a few awkward moments too. And of course, we'll be introducing some useful English vocabulary and expressions to help you talk about your own experiences. So, let's dive in.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is a crush?
A crush is when you have strong feelings of attraction to someone. It can be someone you know, like a classmate or a coworker, or even someone you don't know personally, like a celebrity crush. The important thing is that the feelings are usually lighthearted and temporary, though they can feel really intense at the time.
Yeah, it's often described as puppy love, especially when you're younger. It's like having a feeling of admiration for someone, but it's not as serious as being in love.
I remember my first crush when I was about 12. I used to get butterflies in my stomach every time I saw him. I was so nervous that I couldn't even say hello.
Oh, I know that feeling. My first crush was in high school, and every time I saw her, I'd get so flustered that I'd drop whatever I was holding. It was so embarrassing.
Yeah, crushes have a way of making you act in ways you normally wouldn't. You can't help but admire from afar, even though you're too scared to say anything.
Now let's talk about the different types of crushes. Did you ever have a celebrity crush?
Oh yes, definitely. When I was a teenager, I was completely starstruck by a certain actor. I used to daydream about what it would be like to meet him.
Me too. I think everyone has had a celebrity crush at some point. But there's also something called a platonic crush. That's when you have really strong admiration for a friend, but it's not romantic.
Right. I had a platonic crush on one of my friends in college. I just thought he was the coolest person ever, but there were no romantic feelings involved.
Exactly. Crushes don't always have to be romantic. Sometimes you just idealize someone because they seem so perfect.
So, how do you know when you have a crush? Well, for me, it's when I can't stop thinking about the person. The person is always on my mind, even when I'm trying to focus on something else.
Oh yeah, I've been there. You start blushing every time they're around, and you feel this weird mix of being excited but also nervous. You might get all giddy or feel like you've got butterflies in your stomach.
Exactly. And you might find yourself stealing glances at your crush whenever he is nearby. It's like your brain just can't help it.
I once had a crush where I would rehearse what I was going to say every time I saw her. But then, when the moment came, I'd completely forget my words and just end up being really awkward.
That's classic. Crushes definitely make us all a bit flustered.
Now let's get into one of the most nerve-wracking parts of having a crush, confessing your feelings. Did you ever confess a crush, Amelia?
Oh, I did, and it was terrifying. I remember trying to muster up the courage to tell him how I felt, but I was so scared of being rejected. I was a total nervous wreck.
I've been in that situation too. It's so hard to decide if you should just keep it a secret or go for it. There's always that fear of rejection.
Exactly. I ended up telling my crush, but it didn't go the way I'd hoped. He didn't feel the same way, and I was so embarrassed afterward. But looking back, I'm glad I was able to be vulnerable and express my feelings.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work out, there's something powerful about being honest, but it's not easy. Sometimes it's safer to just admire from afar and avoid the risk of rejection.
Speaking of things not going as planned, let's talk about when crushes go wrong. Have you ever had a cringe-worthy moment with a crush?
Oh, absolutely. There was one time I completely misread the signals. I thought my crush liked me back, so I made this big dramatic confession, only to find out she just saw me as a friend. It was so awkward.
Oh no, that sounds rough. I've definitely experienced mixed signals too. One minute you think he's into you, and the next you're not so sure.
Exactly, it's such a confusing feeling. And then, of course, there's the ultimate heartbreak when you realize it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, crushes can be fun, but they can also leave you feeling really heartbroken when things don't work out.
But sometimes things do work out. Have you ever had a crush that turned into a real relationship?
I have actually. One of my biggest crushes in college ended up turning into a serious relationship. It was amazing to realize that the feelings were mutual.
That's so sweet. It's great when a crush evolves into something more. It's like you finally take that step from admiring from afar to actually getting to know each other better.
Yeah, we started dating after a while, and the relationship just blossomed from there. It's funny to think back on how it all started as just a simple crush.
Sometimes it really is more than just a crush. It's the beginning of something special.
But what happens when a crush doesn't turn into something more? Sometimes you just have to move on.
That's true. Moving on from a crush can be tough, especially when the feelings aren't mutual. I had a crush in high school that I couldn't stop thinking about, but eventually I realized it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I've been there too. It's important to recognize when it's time to let go. For me, it was about finding closure and accepting that not all crushes are meant to turn into relationships.
Exactly. You have to get to a point where you can move on and stop focusing on those unrequited feelings.
It's all part of growing up and learning to navigate your emotions. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you enjoyed our conversation about crushes, from the fun and exciting moments to the more awkward and heart-wrenching ones.
And we hope you learned some useful new vocabulary along the way. Whether you're talking about your own experiences or someone else's, it's always good to have the right words to express those feelings.
Exactly. So, whether you're in the middle of a crush right now or just reflecting on past ones, remember that these feelings are a normal part of life. And who knows? Maybe one day your crush will turn into something more.
Thanks for listening to the Easy Chat English podcast. Be sure to tune in next time for more fun conversations and useful English tips.
See you next time.